64 Tacos Podcasts presents Is This Song Good? This is episode 45. Live, T.B.D.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Is This Song Good? A 64 Tacos podcast. We're starting a new season with this episode, and the theme is going to be deep cuts. We're going to be looking at album tracks, songs that never got released as singles, and we're going to talk about whether we think these songs are good and maybe whether they should have been put out as singles. We've got a big variety of songs, even though the first three are going to be all from the 90s. We actually do hit 6 different decades here, so make sure you check out the whole thing. We're going to start with the song T.B.D. by the band Live from the album Throwing Copper. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Throwing Copper had 5 singles on it, Selling the Drama, I Alone, Lightning Crashes, All Over You, and White Discussion apparently was even a single.
Yep.
And I would say that those 5 songs are in the middle of the quality of the songs on this album. This is one of my favorite albums, especially from the 90s. And I think TBD is definitely a song worth talking about. What do you guys think about TBD?
Yeah, definitely. I bought the Throwing Copper album after one of the singles, probably Lightning Crashes, and gave it the old college listen. Listened to it all the way through several times, and this song, going back and listening to it now, it comes back to me. It's like, oh yeah, I used to love that song and I kind of forgot about it because, the Throwing Copper is not something I listen to all the time. It comes up here and there. But it's not just like a regular listen. And so, coming back to this song was a lot of fun because I did remember a lot of it. I love the repetitive bass line that kind of like grounds the song, keeps it going. I like how it's really kind of like sparse and minimalist and subdued, and then it kind of like builds. It has that sort of like moaning breakdown or whatever around the 2 minute 43 minute mark, something like that, and then it kind of builds up and gets really, really bombastic and loud and stuff, and I like that use of dynamics, and it's just really emotional. I really like the way that the song portrays. I'm not exactly sure what the thematic or like what he's trying to get at through the lyrics, but oftentimes I don't really, the lyrics don't really matter a ton to me if the rest of the song, if the whole mood of the song does something, so that, and this one does, and I've always really liked it. So Dan, what's your take?
I listened to the crap out of Throwing Copper when it came out. This is one of the albums that I listen to most, and I still listen to it sometimes. Regularly. It's one of my favorites. I think sometimes Live gets a bad rap for sort of not being a good band for some reason, which always confuses me. When we're talking about the first 2 albums, because they're just, I don't know, to me they're just so good. This is one of those songs that is very different sounding for even for Live, but for the time, because as you said, the bass line is so prominent, and also it does this thing that I like that Live does sometimes, where they make you wait for a long time before they give you the sort of release.
The anticipation.
Yeah, they pull you in with the bass line and the vocals just kind of going together, and and you're really focusing on it. It's like where's the rest of it, and then boom, they hit you with the rest of it. It has a really great effect.
And as you mentioned, Zach, that first change when he goes to the sort of like I don't know if you call it a breakdown or a bridge. That's when the first big change happens, when you get out of the verse chorus little loop there, and you're thinking, oh, okay, this song is maybe not going to go anywhere. And then it finally does sort of release, and Ed, kind of Ed Kowalczyk kind of lets go and, does his thing, which I always enjoy. And the guitars kind of fire up, and I don't know. I really like this song. It's not, maybe one of my top 3 or 4 on the album. But it being different makes it, I think it gives you that sort of replay value. I understand why it wasn't a single. It doesn't sound like a single. It's that Patience thing is not something that you associate with radio hits,
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a great song. And one of the things I wanted to mention, that I've noticed more recently listening to the song is how much I love. I really love the way the whole band sounds, but like the bass tone's really cool on this. It's really sort of muddy, but that makes it nice and different. But I love the way the drums sound, and I like the choice to sort of like kind of go with more like brushes or stick bundles or whatever they do to sort of like give a different feel. And I always love the way the guitars sound in live too. So I just think it was just an incredibly well produced album. And this song sounds great. Maybe the other thing I wanted to mention was that I just discovered now or maybe I looked at it years ago, but I did not remember. I always kind of thought T.B.D. meant to be determined, which maybe is what was meant. But I read more recently that it was maybe supposed to stand for Tibetan Book of the Dead. And if so, well, then maybe he's just mulling over his life, or he or she are mulling over their life at the end. And maybe that's why it feels so scattered, because the lyrics are interesting and I think pretty well written, but they're not very, there's no, without the key to try to figure out what it is. It's more just sort of like it draws you in with its sort of inscrutability more than gives you like an obvious like narrative or answer to what it's talking about.
Yeah, no, it's a great song. I agree. It doesn't sound like a single. It's not a song I would ever expect to hear on the radio, but man, I'm glad it's on that album, and I'm glad I spent so much time with this album, because it's a great album. It's one of the best albums from the 90s. I think I said already. And I had a hard time picking. I knew I wanted a song from this album. Had a hard time picking between Stage and Waitress and T.B.D., but I thought T.B.D. was just different enough that it was the one to go with.
My favorite deep cut on this album is Pillar of Davidson, but I agree with all the ones you just mentioned too.
Pillar of Davidson, they're all great. Honestly, the worst songs on the album are probably Lightning Crashes and Lightning Crashes is probably the worst, and maybe Iris maybe. But the rest of them are all amazing songs. And those songs aren't bad either. Like Lightning Crashes came on a playlist the other day, and I was like, oh, I really like this song, even though I've heard it a million times, Yeah,
it helps that have some distance from when it was really ubiquitous on the radio. But the singles suffer from that sometimes. But now that it's been, 25 years plus, you're like, oh, yeah, this is a good song now that I haven't heard it 1,000 times in the last month.
Right. So, this is definitely a good song, but probably not a single, not something made for the radio.
And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think with a lot of these, with the deep cuts, it's sort of like these are our personal favorites, and they're really special to us, and that's what makes them even more special. And to try and find some sort of commonality or what makes them special, independent of, deep cutting. So what's up next, Dan?
Oh, what is up next? Let me look at our little listy list here. Okay, we're going back to another huge album from the 90s. We're going to Achtung Baby, U2. We're doing Acrobat, not one of the singles, but we'll talk about that next week.
All right, see you there.
I caught it on audio.